Hi, I'm Linda, and this is No Frills ASMR. I'm kind of excited today because we're going back to, the great state of Michigan, my home state, originally my home state, my birth state. And it's interesting because I wouldn't have thought I had that much to say about Michigan, but I think I do. Actually, I'm just seeing this and now I want to open this up. Oh, we're going to have to go back to this. Hold on. Let me put that there. Because I realize I've made multiple videos about Michigan by now, haven't I? I've done a video on the Great Lakes. I did a video about the wreck of the Edmund Fitzgerald. I did a video about the sea lamprey that are like an eel that eat the fish in the Great Lakes. I did a video on the big three automakers from Michigan: Chrysler, General Motors, and Ford. Anything else? I think maybe that's it. But in a recent video, a commenter, who I wish I had your name, but I couldn't remember which video you commented on, and so I couldn't find it. But thank you for this idea. She said I should maybe look at talking about the Henry Ford Museum, Greenfield Village. And I was like, oh my gosh, why didn't I think of that? And I realized why I didn't think of it. I think I didn't think of it because as a kid, it was a regular school field trip place where, you know how when you go to something a lot, you kind of take it for granted? I think that's what happened to me with Greenfield Village and Henry Ford Museum, that I just am so used to it that I don't think about it that much. And when I started thinking about it, I'm like, it's incredible. It's really an incredible place. So let me just show you real quick. Here is Detroit in Michigan. Michigan looks like a mitten. It's like this, and this is the thumb. And Detroit is like here. So here's Detroit. So if you talk to people from Michigan, and they might go like this and say, I'm from here. That's a Michigan thing. And the museum is in Dearborn, which is right here, Dearborn, Michigan. And that's where my husband's from, originally. And so he went to Greenfield Village a lot. I did too, because I think every kid from Michigan, like when people come in from out of town, you go to Greenfield Village. When the school has a field trip, you go to Greenfield Village. So it was a regular stop. Here's Dearborn on this map. Here's Detroit. So it's just south of Detroit. Born and raised in South. That song where he goes, born and raised in South Detroit. There's no South Detroit, really. Sort of annoying. Here's Greenfield Village and the Henry Ford Museum. And that is what we're talking about today. And before I start, I should say, a lot of you already know this, but if you're new here, I'm not an expert on anything. This is a channel, it's called ASMR, and it can be relaxing for some people to just listen to something to kind of center their mind so they can relax or even fall asleep. So that's why I make it. I try to get the facts correct. But like I said, I'm not a historian or any kind of expert. But today, I was having so much fun. I went to the library to try to find some picture books, I could find none, which was a bummer. But I don't know, there's something about the library just looking at books and looking through the stacks. I find that, especially when you're on a mission to find something and you're going from section to section and looking in the indexes, that is actually like so relaxing to me. And green. I hear you. Greenfield Village. All right, so if you've been here and you have a story, please in the comments share, because it's really cool. It's really cool. All right, so I've shown you where we are in Michigan, and now I'll show you a picture. I remembered that when we looked through this book, I don't know, what was it, a month ago, maybe? This book of legends, there was a picture of the creator of Greenfield Village in here. So I thought I had it marked for a minute there, but I guess not. Do you know who that is? You'd never guess. This picture does not look like her. Lucille Ball. Lucille Ball. Wait, what the heck? Oh no. Alright, hold on. I thought I had it marked, but I don't. Let's take a quick look here. Ford. Henry Ford, 57. Industrialist, 57. I promise we'll get there. All right, here he is. So this is Henry Ford, and he is the man who created Ford Motor Company. And in the video I did on the big three automakers, we discuss Henry Ford a bit. He didn't invent the automobile. He didn't even, as it seems, invent the I'm blanking a word, sorry, hold on, it'll come to me. The line, oh, for goodness sakes, my brain's having a moment. The assembly line. Yeah, he didn't even invent the assembly line. I actually was looking that up to try to remember, because I thought, oh yeah, I think it was like Oldsmobile or somebody, but then I saw it was oh boy, now I'm forgetting that too. Oh well, it doesn't matter. I don't know why I brought it up. Is it George Washington Carver? Is it the I don't know, Congen? I don't know. Anyway, but he looked at the assembly line. He's like, we can do this better. The goal of this thing is to crank out as much as we can as quickly as possible so that regular people can afford an automobile. And he really perfected that. And he did that with the Model T, and he did that with airplanes during World War II. Yeah. And I did a video about wartime manufacturing, and I touch on that a little bit, but that's Henry Ford. And their quote here is from Nikita Khrushchev, and it says, "The one who creates the most through mass production will win. Henry Ford has shown us how to do it." So this is who we're kind of talking about today, because he is the person who put together Greenfield Village. And I am aware that there is, he is problematic. He was a transformative industrialist. He did a lot for preserving history through these museums, but he was also an anti-Semitic person and deeply problematic in that way. So with that awareness, we will go into this because we can't erase that history, but he also did a lot of, so you kind of have to separate that a little bit during this. Okay, so that's Ford. Let's take a quick look in here before we move forward. I'm sorry I'm taking a while to get to the point. But I think we have to have just our background on Ford, and I know he's in here because I recall reading about it before. Fiddle, foreign, 14, fourth. Wait, right here, right? Foreign, Ford, Henry, 442. Like it's all fa. 442, we have Henry Ford. 440. If my fingers look dirty, it's because they are. I'm a working girl, and my hands got so dirty today. I scrubbed and scrubbed, even with like a scrubber, and they still look kind of dirty. So ignore. Okay, Henry Ford, and here he is. Henry Ford, front right. Thomas Edison, back right here. And John Burroughs is here in a Model T Ford in 1914. Okay, it says, an American industrial leader of the late 19th and early 20th century, Ford perfected the assembly line, see they say perfected there, technique and mass production, by which the Model T automobile and its successors were made available for the multitude, and he made a lot. Ford said, history is bunk, and was often considered a man of extreme conservatism and hard-headed practicality. The Ford Foundation, which he established in 1930s, has funded a great number of educational programs. So I think that's interesting. He said, history is bunk. And I have heard people quote that because growing up in Detroit, you'd hear stuff about Ford. But what it seems to me, meant by that has to do with he was creating new things, creating new ideas. He was perfecting ideas and rolling out manufacturing, but he also dealt with a lot of very ahead of their time kind of thinkers. Well, it was during the Industrial Revolution, so things were happening left and right. And he felt like in school they were teaching you, like, you need to know that the Battle of Hastings was on, I don't even know what the Battle of Hastings is. I don't know where that came from. But, you know, dates and locations, instead of teaching people by learning, by being part of history, which I think is what really, as he grew older, led him to say, I need to save these parts of history. I need to, you know, a lot of these places that he saved, which we'll talk about in a minute, were going to be demolished. And so he grabbed them up and put them in a place where children and adults could learn history by being there and by seeing it and touching it and doing it. And I couldn't agree more with that, because I could never learn by dates. I had to learn by stories and things like that. You know, one thing I want to look at when we had this open, I kind of marked this, but then didn't look at it. Formerly known as the Henry Ford Museum in Greenfield Village. Formerly, what's it known? Oh no, that's what I'm calling it. The 12-acre Henry Ford complex in Detroit suburb of Dearborn includes the Henry Ford Museum and its 5 exhibits of Americana. This could have changed this map's old. Among the exhibits are the automobile in American life, a unique and in-depth look at the world the car has created, and the Innovation Station learning game. Autos on display range from early horseless carriages to fondly remembered family sedans. Visitors can also view a 1946 diner, a 1950s drive-in theater, and a Holiday Inn guest room from the 1960s. That's funny. I stayed in those. They used to have a thing on the bed you could put a quarter in, and it was magic fingers, and it would go like that in the bed. And there were always ashtrays and the Gideon Bible. Anyway, Greenfield Village, but I wasn't born until 70, but the rooms still existed. Greenfield Village, which adjoins the museum, features more than 80 historic structures. Some built here and others moved here from their original locations around the country and grouped thematically. Spanning some 300 years, the structures include such treasures as, we're not going to read that, we're going to tell you. And I printed up this map of the Greenfield Village because I wish I had one, but I didn't. But look at how tiny. I mean, the print's tiny. But anyway, we can take a look and talk about it a little bit. Maybe I'll go back to this because it is interesting. So what Ford did, he hung out with a lot of these people. Like, I think Edison was older than Ford, and he looked up to Edison, but he hung out, I think, with they showed him with Edison and Burroughs, and would the Wright brothers have been before him? I'm not sure whether he knew them or not, but there were like places that they were going to destroy, or not even destroy. Sometimes it was just a different time. It was like the 1920s. And when he went in and said, I want to buy up, like, I think one of the first big things he bought up was Edison's Menlo Park laboratory. And there was no public outcry about that at the time. Not in that time, preserving what we now know are historic buildings, they wouldn't have been that historic yet. And it just wasn't looked on as something people really cared about. They were like, hey, we need to put something new here. We're going to tear this down. And Henry Ford saw the interest in preserving the buildings. So he went to New Jersey and he met with Edison and Mina Edison, his wife, and asked them for the building. And asked them if he could buy them. And they were like, sure. Actually, I guess they bought the phonograph, the original phonograph from him. I'm not sure if they bought the buildings directly from him, but anyway, he procured the Menlo Park Laboratory and all the outbuildings that were around it, and he moved them to Dearborn, Michigan. And so that's one thing, is Thomas Edison, who he was like very interested in. I think Ford thought, it rightly so, that medicine, I said right, Menlo, and I said medicine, that Edison was, a genius. And he was kind of like super interested in him from what I've read. Menlo Park. So that's one thing that's there. And then Henry Ford brought in his birthplace home. So that's there, and you can see that. He brought in his first schoolhouse. I feel like I know the name of it because the schoolhouse has a name, and that's where we used to go when we had field trips as a kid. They took you to the one-room schoolhouse. And you'd have the slate, and you'd have to try to write on it, and it's like so hard to write on. And the bad boy in our class, Kevin, now we're in third grade, so he's probably not that bad. He's probably fine. But I still remember his last name, but I won't shout him out. But Kevin every year would get in trouble, and he'd have to put on the dunce cap, which looks like this. And it might even say dunce on it. I feel like it did. And you'd have to put the dunce cap on and sit in the corner of the room with your back to the class in the corner. And I was always like, partially I hated Kevin because he was mean and he used to like kind of punch me and stuff. But partially I felt really bad because I said to sit in the corner. Anyway, so the one-room schoolhouse is there. And I think that was Henry Ford's schoolhouse growing up. And they would teach all the different age classes in the one room. It's really kind of interesting. And then, like I said, the Wright brothers, who, invented the airplane. I'm trying to think if that's quite right. But yeah, invented. Yeah, they perfected. I don't know. Anyway, we'll have to do one on them. So he bought up their bicycle shop and their home and brought them from Dayton, Ohio to Greenfield Village. So you can go to the bicycle shop, and there they have those, oh gosh, what are they called? What do they look like? Do they have a wheel? I think they have like a small wheel here. What is that called? I want to call it a penny farthing, but that doesn't seem right. You guys know what I'm talking about, the big one-wheel bike. And a lot of times they have people in costume. And I say a lot of times because it's kind of when they're busier. Like they don't always have people around. But on a summer day, they'll have people in costume who are all around the village. So it's almost like when you go to like a Renaissance festival and they're all dressed. That's kind of how it is at Greenfield Village. In fact, they have a restaurant. I think it's called the Eagle Tavern. It might be the Eagle Inn. Shoot, I should have looked that one up. I was there not that long ago. I think it's called, maybe it's called Eagle Inn and Tavern. It's something like that. And it's old. I should have information. But I feel like it's from the 1890s. Look that up. I don't know. But they have all people in, dress. And the food is kind of from that time. It's pretty fun. It's pretty cool. You can make a reservation. If you're there on a not busy day, you can just go in and eat. So that's always fun. He got Firestone, who made tires. Harvey Firestone. And he got his farmhouse, and that's there. I think he has one of the early rubber, factories there. I'm not sure. But anyway, some Firestone. And Noah Webster, who wrote the American Dictionary. He bought his home and place where he wrote the dictionary. And that is there, and you can tour that. It's like really cool because it's all in this village, and he moved these buildings brick by brick, a lot of them. And if he couldn't get the building he wanted, he would recreate it, but to exact specifications. But a lot of these that he, took brick by brick, he would buy up the furnishings, the lights, like everything in it is authentic. It's really very cool, and you can walk around. And he also put in, like you can see it here, there's, actually I don't know where you see it, but there's a working farm. This map's way too small. Hold on. Oh my gosh, it's still too small. Walnut field. Anyway, there's a working farm. And they actually grow things on the farm. And I think that's what they use to supply the restaurant too. I mean, probably just partially, but. And on the farm, they do have like the Hermitage slave quarters. They moved there to show that. And they do show some of the Black experience. And while Henry Ford was anti-Semitic, but he also did do some work for, Black workers at the time. He gave them equal pay, and he hired them at his assembly lines. And that was something that was a little bit unheard of in the 1910s, or whatever. So, and Ford had set up a lot of homes in Dearborn area. And I think, no, I won't say that because I'm not confident enough. I don't want to be wrong. Never mind. What else is there? Robert Frost's house is there. George Washington Carver's cabin is one of the buildings. And they have a baseball park. And sometimes during the summer, they will have teams who dress up of the time. Like, I don't know what time, 1910, 1920, I don't know. And they'd play like stickball or whatever out there. It's kind of fun. What else? Heinz house? I assume that's Heinz ketchup. Oh, a Hearst shed. Yeah. They have a hearse shed that holds it's like a horse and carriage hearse. I mean, just the things he thought of to save, I think are really kind of interesting. Oh, a tintype studio. There were things that he looked at and he said, a tintype, that's going to be not used anymore, I think. And you know what else? I think there's a printing press. I feel like I remember that where they'd have to put every letter in. Oh yeah, they have a glass blowing. Oh, and they have they would make the horseshoes, an iron. What do you call that? That's smith. Ironsmith? That doesn't sound right. Anyway, they have that there. They have a working pottery, a weaving. That's right. They have a weaving shop, a pottery shop, a sawmill. Yeah, he brought in a sawmill. A Stony Creek mill pond with the water mill. He brought in a silk. Yeah, a silk mill. I remember that. And what's kind of neat to do in the winter time around Christmas, you can walk around. And my husband was telling me that when he was like a teenager, his mom bought a season pass to Greenfield Village. And so they would go, because they lived very close, they would go there every night, like for exercise and walk around. And during Christmas time, it would be so pretty. And she's from England. His mom was from England. And they, for some reason, this doesn't really have to do with Americana, but Henry Ford loved the Cotswolds in England. And so he rebuilt piece by piece, brought them over and had them rebuilt, these Cotswold cottages. And so I think his mom really enjoyed that. So that's a nice memory for him because she died in her 50s. And so, anyway, what else do we have here? Let's see. Cider mill. I can't say I remember the cider. Oh, the wagon shop. Yep. Soybean Lab Agriculture Gallery. I don't remember that. I think some things have been brought in since I've been there. Oh yeah, they have a covered bridge. All right, let's see. What are the famous things? Cotswold Forge, Cotswold Cottage, Giddings Family Home. Who's Giddings? I don't know. Noah Webster Home, Robert Frost Home, Swiss Chalet, Edison Homestead, Luther Burbank Birthplace. Luther Burbank. Hermitage Slave Quarters, Maddox Family Home, William Holmes McGuffey School and Birthplace, George Washington Carver Cabin, Chapman Family Home, Adams Family Home, Charles Steinmetz Cabin, Sound of America Gallery. They had a old timey like candy shop. It was probably more than that, but as a kid, all I remember is candy. And all the kids would have money at the field trips that their parents gave them, and I never had money. And I'd like to say that, like, oh, my mom was so mean, but I think probably all the other kids knew to ask their parents for money. And probably the teacher told us, ask your mom for $1. And I never did that. So I never got candy. But they would get this string candy, and it was rock candy on a string that, like, you let it crystallize. And I was always a little bit jealous, but I think one time I finally got it, and it wasn't any good. I didn't like it. So there you go. Oh, and somewhere here there's a an old I'm looking to see if I can find it. Church. There's another word for that. Anyway, and I went to a wedding of a friend there, and that was really nice. Oh yeah, Toll House. Okay, Thomas Edison statue, Thomas Edison Menlo Park complex. Yeah, because it's the laboratory, but it also includes like sheds and stuff. Sarah Jordan boarding house. Now, I think the Sarah Jordan boarding house was the first electrified house in the U.S. I think that's why he got that building. It was, I'm assuming it was in New Jersey, but I don't know. And it was one of the first ones to be wired for electricity. And then Thomas Edison's Fort Myers Laboratory. Okay, here's the right stuff. They have the right cycle shop, the right home. Yeah, a jewelry store, Grimm jewelry store, a post office. I mean, it's really interesting. And it's all laid out on streets. So while you're walking around, it feels like you've gone back in a, time machine and like just shown up here. And with all the people in costume, if you get there like early in the morning before anybody's there, you kind of feel like you've gone back in time. There are horses clomping around, and there's a Model T. Oh, and there's a steam engine, and you can take a ride, I think, on the train. There's a train, and there's a what is it called? Like a roundabout? What is it called? Around where the trains can go in, and then they move them to a different track. There's one of those right here, probably 31 railroad turntable. Wait, let's see. Is it a Kohler's? DT&M Roundhouse, Railroad Turntable, Colleen Tower and Water Tower, Smith Creek Depot and Station, Edison Illuminating Company Station A. Yeah. I'm trying to think what else. They have like an old, I guess it's a bus, but it's horse-drawn. I don't know what they call that, but it would hold a whole bunch of people, and you could, ride on that to get from place to place. What is this tornado? It looks like, a lightning bolt. What is that? 74. Giddings Family Home. I don't know. What do those mean? Oh, storm shelter. Okay. It's a storm shelter. Anyway, all right. So I don't feel like I've done a great job here explaining like how awesome this is. But I did go to the library, and I saw this book with Edison, and because I couldn't find anything on Greenfield Village at our library, and you had to ask them to bring something. I was like, I don't want to do all that. But this does have a little something on it. I didn't even talk about the museum, but the Henry Ford Museum, which apparently they have a different name for now. I don't know. It is, I want to say it's right, like here's the village. It's like here or something. It's right near. You can buy, I think you can buy a pass for one or the other or both. But to do both in one day, that's kind of a lot. Because, it depends. It depends on how much you really look at stuff. Like, me, I'm reading the signs. I like to walk slow and take my time. So I would take 2 days, but I don't know. Anyway, but at the Henry Ford Museum, they have old trains. They have the chair from Ford's Theater, where Lincoln was shot. They have that chair. They have the 1961 Lincoln Continental that John F. Kennedy was shot in. It's like crazy. Oh, what's really neat, they have the bus from the Montgomery bus boycott where Rosa Parks wouldn't sit at the back of the bus. That's there, and you can even go in there and sit down and everything. They have this house that was going to be a house for like the masses, and it's called the Dymaxion House, I think, and it's sort of like my recollection is, it's sort of like a circle, and you go in like around here, and there are windows, and it was like a prefabricated house, and they could just pop it up. Sorry, that was probably loud. It's cool, but it never went into production. But I guess Ford thought it was interesting enough, or maybe that came after his time, because I think some of these things, the collection has grown. But they have all sorts of Ford cars, early cars. They have trains and airplanes, like whole big airplanes in there. They have one of his early assembly lines. There's a carousel. There's all kinds of things in there. It's really cool. It's a cool museum. I think between the two, it's like one of the biggest museums in the world. Not the biggest, but Anyway, so this Edison book, I just looked in the index. Here's Edison with a statue holding a light bulb. And if you're interested in history, just kind of was glancing at this book. It might be a really good one. I don't know. So they touch on it here. They touch on it. It says the ladder, I think that means Ford was the ladder because we skipped, had become so besotted with Edison that a newspaper publishing a photograph of them in conversation, mouth to ear, felt obliged to explain to its readers, Ford isn't kissing his aged but still vigorous chum. So Edison was older than Ford, and Ford looked up to him, I guess. Ford planned to establish a $5 million Edison Institute of Technology in Dearborn, Michigan. It would feature a recreation of his hero's first laboratory, stocked as authentically as possible, down to the last jar of aqua regia. I don't know what that is. One of the first items he solicited was a testimonial, suitable for framing, that the phonograph had been invented in that shed half a century before, and the shed is there. Edison obliged with a letter showing he could still wield a pen beautifully at age 80. And here is the letter, and I'll read it to you because I am of the olds who can still read cursive. But I will say the original phonograph, the very first phonograph, is there, and you can play it and hear Edison talk. It's pretty cool. I do very much remember that from being a kid. All right, from the laboratory of Thomas Edison, June 15th, 1927. Dear Mr. Ford, the first phonograph in the world was made under my direction out by one of the workmen of my laboratory at Menlo Park, New Jersey, in the early fall of 1877. I was the first person who spoke on the phonograph, and I recited the well-known verse, Mary had a little lamb, its fleece was white as snow, and everywhere that Mary went, the lamb was sure to go. These were the first words ever recorded and reproduced in a phonograph. Yours sincerely, Thomas Edison, to Henry Ford, Dearborn, Michigan. So that's interesting, and I'm sure this is framed on the wall by the phonograph. I don't know. Ford began by purchasing the scrubby hamlet that had once been Menlo Park, New Jersey. Next, he carried off every brick and board of the original complex and foraged the soil for experimental detritus. To Mina's, and Mina is Edison's wife, to Mina's mounting irritation, he also became a snapper-up of unconsidered trifles around Seminole Lodge, where his immaculate trousers seat was seen protruding from a barrel of old lamps. So she didn't like it that he was going around taking stuff. He proposed appropriating Edison's laboratory there, too, in exchange for a modern facility more tailored to rubber research. Mina threatened to contribute her own dead body to the scheme. Mina was she did a lot of work for, people's rights and stuff in Florida. I think she wasn't just to be trifled with. She had never been able to understand her husband's goodwill toward Ford or Firestone and considered them both to be hucksters, capitalizing on his fame. It did not occur to her that maybe Edison was, in turn, capitalizing on their wealth and willingness to finance his work. So I guess he wasn't. I guess Edison didn't get rich off it. That's what Ford knew how to do. Since 1912, he had tolerated Ford's, this is a big word, you guys, obsequiousness as interest on the corporate loans and battery orders that flowed his way from Dearborn. It had been it had been less easy for him in recent years to accept leather-bound volumes of the International Jew, a series of anti-Semitic newspaper articles in which Ford felt impelled to warn Aryans against such threats as the Jewish plan to split society and Jewish jazz, moron music. Edison avoided embarrassment by having his staff non-committally acknowledge receipt of the books for him. I know very little about Mr. Ford's efforts. I do not want to get into any controversy about the English, Irish, Germans, or Jews, even Yankees. Feeling himself thus unsullied, he agreed to accept Ford and Firestone as partners in establishing an official Edison Botanic Research Corporation to seriously address the issue of American dependency on foreign rubber. And that's an interesting thing, too. We'll have to do a separate one on rubber and how it's made, because it's kind of interesting. So I thought that was a little interesting thing. So this all started, I don't know if I mentioned that, the Henry Ford Museum, it opened to the public in 1929, and I think on purpose it was the 50th anniversary of Thomas Edison's light bulb invention. So he was like an Edison super fan. But he started collecting things much earlier. I think 1923 or something is when he grabbed up like the schoolhouse that he went to when he was a kid and started dealing with Edison in Menlo Park. Yeah. But, complicated figure still. That Nazi stuff, like in Mein Kampf, Hitler praises Ford. So think about that for a minute. But it is, because Ford, like around Detroit, he did a lot of help for the working class people. He made the $5 a day workday. He gave them housing, but at the same time, he wanted to control their lives. He made kind of what they called a daddy state, where he wanted to tell them, you can't drink, you can't listen to music, and if you do, you'll get fired from work. I mean, it's complicated. What else? So it was originally called the Edison Institute, but then changed to the Henry Ford Museum in Greenfield Village. But then I'm just now learning, newsflash, that maybe it changed to the, what did they say was something complex? I hadn't heard that before. Oh, what did they say? We never did finish reading this. Spanning through some 300 years, the structure includes such treasures as Thomas Edison's laboratory, George Washington Carver's cabin, a 19th century railroad roadhouse, and the Logan County Courthouse. Oh, yeah. He has the Logan County Courthouse where Abraham Lincoln practiced law, which they say, okay. The Henry Ford also includes an IMAX theater. I wonder if that's still true. I feel like a lot of those IMAX theaters aren't around anymore. I feel the need to look up George Washington Carver because all I can think is that he invented peanut butter. And I feel like I really need to know more about that because I think there's more to that. That's where I know, I don't know how great my education was. 273, I think it said. 273. I know we'll get comments where people are like, this girl doesn't know anything. You're right. All right. George Washington Carver, an African-American scientist and agricultural innovator of the late 19th and early 20th centuries. Carver aided the economy of the South by developing hundreds of industrial uses for crops, such as the peanut and the sweet potato. Carver, who was born to slave parents, was the first black scientist to gain nationwide prominence. That's interesting. That is interesting. All right, is there anything else? I mean, I know 1,000,000% I left out. Probably so much stuff. But I do think it's interesting, that one book had that quote of him saying history is bunk. And, he just was a believer in learning by doing. And he did that. I mean, he made this place. And you really do, I feel like, learn so much more. I think one of the reasons I know what little I do about history, it's not from school. It's not from memorizing. I remember taking tests where you had to memorize like all these dates from the Civil War. I don't remember any of that. But I do remember walking through all these stores and cabins and listening to Thomas Edison talk and going to Menlo Park. And I even feel like there were hands-on things you could do to learn how the light bulb worked. I don't talk about Tesla, just Edison. And what else? The farm, just all that. I feel like you learn so much more by doing, And I would say if I were to take my kids here, which I have, but when I took my kids, I don't think they really, like my kids probably didn't have cell phones or anything. But if I did, I'd be like, everybody put your devices in the car or get a locker or something, put them away and kind of experience the thing as if you're in that time, because it is fun to watch the iron, blacksmith, the glass blowers. If you're there on a day when you can take the train, I think you can take a ride in a Model T, and you can walk through all these things. It's just, it's kind of a fun thing to do, All right, well, I can't think of anything else. What did we decide? What is this called? That's a pretty darn good picture, I must say. Poor Kevin. Ugh, poor Kevin. All right. I'm going to cut this up while I think if there's anything else. Yeah, we went to a wedding, and then I guess the reception was it must have been at that Eagle Tavern. It was so fun. We had such fun. Let's see, where's that Eagle? Let's see what it's called, because they probably have the name wrong. Oof. Dining Eagle Tavern. Yes, I got it. A Taste of History. Sir John Bennett Sweet Shop. Yep. Frozen custard. I don't think that was there. Owl Night Lunch Wagon. Huh. Walnut Grove Field. That must be where they play the baseball games. The only other thing I really had to show you, I have this book, and I thought, well, could look up a Model T. They must have a Model T in here. Let's see. No index. How dare they? Oh, no. Porsche? No. American Classics. Here we go. Ooh, that is a classic. I would 1,000,000% cruise around town in that. That's the best year for the Mustang. Okay. Look at that. Look at how huge. Oh my goodness. It's a biggie. This was my mom's first car, a 1957 Chevy in blue. Yup. This should be my next car. Look at this. This is a Corvette with a fastback with the I can't think of the word, but it's like a separated window. What do you call that? It's a Corvette? Okay, let's read this. Sorry, going off on a tangent. 1963 Corvette Stingray, semi-boat tail rear, novel split rear window. Yeah, I think they only did that 1 year. Hidden headlights. So cool. All right. Model T, where are you? This doesn't feel like we're getting close. What? I see it. Ooh. It's a nice muscle car there. All right, we have to go through this book one day, so I shouldn't go through it all, but here we go. Nope, those are Mercedes. Wait. What the heck? That's funny. I guess they don't have a Model T. Mercedes. That's not. Those are Rolls Royce or something. What is that? Nope. Oh, that's a sweet car. Oh my god. All right, forget that Corvette. I want this. This. Oh my god, it's so cool. That is so cool. All right. Oh, that's cute. Cute LaFerrari. All right, I take it back. Oh, here we go. Cadillac. My baby boy. Cadillac. What? You all Cadillac? All right, never mind. Oh well. We saw Model T in the other one anyway. Silver Ghost. Bentley. This book must be from Europe. Not have a Model T. Oh well. All right. Talk to you guys soon. If you're ever in Michigan, go hit up the Henry Ford. You can see Thomas Edison, Menlo Park, and Henry Ford's birthplace, the Wright brothers, bike shop, and birthplace. You can go eat at the old tavern, Firestone's house or something, I don't know, where the Webster Dictionary was written. I guess it's stuff kids don't care that much about, but you never know. Go up Maple Lane to Port Street and then take that around to Main Street, up Washington Boulevard. Take a right on State Street. Go back up S by 61, which is Thomas Edison's Fort Meyer laboratory. I don't know. I'm assuming that's where he worked. He had like over 1,000 patents. Edison was extremely inventive. And he was working on rubber, so maybe he was doing that there. I don't know. 62 Rocks Village Toll House. And then 64 right here is the bandstand. So sometimes on summer days they have musicians playing there, or plays or puppet shows, as I recall. I think, but all from that time period. So that's fun. 66. That's the covered bridge. Well, who doesn't love a covered bridge? I don't know what it is about putting a cover on a bridge that makes it special, but it always is. Always is. Especially in the fall. You're like, take a picture of me in the covered bridge. I don't know why. 65 Ackley Pond. So the covered bridge overlooks this pond right here. That's really pretty. I bet that's pretty. I remember somewhere there's a tower. Gosh, I can't think of what you call them. And they're two animatronic, not animatronic. What's the word I'm looking for? I don't know. But there are two guys. I don't remember exactly. I want to call it like a Lukenspiel. But that's a made-up word. But they like dance on the hour. It's like a clock, and the clock tower, they go. So we're just gonna call that a Lukenspiel. I don't remember. Somebody tell me. Alright. 68 is Susquehanna Plantation. 69 Plimpton Family Home. 70 Ferris Windmill. Oh yeah. They have like a real like Dutch windmill. And it's really pretty. And it's a nice like stopping